such a critical piece of this whole thing is evaluation of players and knowing who you actually want to bring in these doors, right, into this program. And you'd mentioned, I've heard you talk before about the transfer portal, and the hard part is you got to move so quickly with the kids that you sometimes don't have a chance to look at their background. I'm curious, are there any non-negotiables that you have where you guys say as a staff, hey, if there's anything on the background that's this, we're not touching it? Or are there anything that, like, from a positive standpoint, that you look at, length, speed, like what are the things where you say we're taking the guessing work out of this thing if these are the non-negotiables we need for a player in this program?
Yeah, so I guess for us, like you talked about, we want guys that have as many traits as possible in terms of height, weight, speed, production on film, physicality, those types of things. But some of these programs will not take a guy unless they have a specific measurement.
Yeah.
And we're not that rigid because I think there are exceptions that we have seen at the highest level in the NFL, Bob Sanders, or you can go on and on with examples, right? But where you have to be careful is, okay, you're going to take one exception. You can't take more than that per room. And then in terms of red flags that we would say no on, I don't think there's one specific one that jumps out to us. As you know, this is a pretty strict school and a school that's, I would say, risk averse in a lot of ways. So we're not going to do a whole lot of that. But I think in general, my message to the staff all the time and a reminder for myself is, let's not get intoxicated with talent and talent alone.
Yeah.
There's red flags. You got to be willing to see the red flags. It's not just the GPA. Look on the transcript. How many tardies are there? How many absences are there?
Yeah.
When you're talking to other coaches in the area, what are they saying about the prospect? When you're talking to a kid in the hallway at a school, a non-football player, what are they saying? There's enough information. You're sitting with a young man in his office. How is he sitting there? What's his eye contact? What's his body language like? How respectful is he to his parents? So there's red flags. You got to be willing to see them and not just be intoxicated by the talent.
Yeah. One of the biggest groups that watches my podcast religiously is young coaches that want to break into college football, that want to be a head coach someday. It's such a big part of your job is evaluating young coaches, finding young coaches that you want to bring into this program. What are the things that you look for when you're watching a young coach operate, or you're saying, hey, is this a guy that could be a position coach for us?
Well, I think the first thing is I'd make a compliment to you. Like, I enjoy doing these interviews because I think you have really good perspective and I think you ask great questions.
Thank you.
And that's not always the case, so it doesn't make for enjoyable interviews sometimes. But I think for me, I think curiosity is a really important trait, right? Somebody that is curious about a lot of different things, wants to grow, wants to evolve, is a lifelong learner. Once you think you got this thing figured out in this profession, that's when your career's going in the tank. You got to constantly be trying to learn and get better. That's one of the reasons why I love this time of year, because on the off days, we lift with one group and then meet with the other. So when the defense is lifting, the offense is meeting, and then we flip it on the off days, which is great because it creates opportunities for our offensive coaches to sit in all the defensive meetings and vice versa. That's really valuable for professional growth, and we encourage that. But I think the other thing is you're going to work 16 hours with people. You got to make sure you're bringing the right people in. And just like, a lot of professions, it's a smaller world than people realize. So, we typically are able to hire people that either we know or somebody that I know that loves Penn State or loves James Franklin that I can call and they're going to tell me the truth and vouch for this person and put their name on it. Like, one of the most ridiculous things is call my references. Why am I going to call your references? They're going to say wonderful things about you. I want to call people that know you and know me and what we're looking for and what would be a great fit. So that's been, I think, really, really helpful for us. And then again, having the support from the administration that not only can you identify them, we've been able to identify people in the past, but then you can't go hire them.
Yeah.
Now we're able to go hire them.
One of the things I remember from when I played for you here for a couple of years, but just watching you since then, is how detailed you are in everything, and how it's kind of taught me that like everything matters. Everything from how you guys are playing defense on third down to like the cleanliness of the bathrooms and all those little things that us like average people wouldn't think about. What's an example of something that you feel like you're like obsessed with in this program that most people would never think that a head coach would be thinking about that kind of stuff?
Well, I think the biggest thing is I'm kind of obsessed with everything, and that's where it's so important to hire good people, because like my thing is, I'm going to tell you when I hire you, I'm a micromanager, right? And I think as long as people are honest with you on the front end, then this is what you signed up for, right? You can't complain on the back end. But my thing is, I'm going to be a micromanager, and I'm going to be obsessed until the person has showed me that they're going to do the job at a level that we need it done. Then I'm going to walk away, because let's be honest, I can't be running all the different departments. So that's where hiring really good people is very important. And then at that point, you let them run with it. But I think the thing that probably over the last 10 years that I've really tried to spend my time as the head coach is, how can we create the best teaching environments? How can we create the best learning environments? And when I can see a PowerPoint, or when I can give feedback to a assistant coach or a coordinator at the end of a meeting on something he may have considered. We've brought teaching specialists, people that go around the country and teach you how to be the best teacher possible, and videotape our classrooms or videotape our meeting rooms and give us feedback of how we can grow. That's probably the thing that I've really kind of clung on to in the last couple of years, of how can we create the best environment for teaching and learning as possible, because ultimately we're overpaid phys ed teachers, right? That's what we are.
Thinking back to that first few years, and I know it was a long time ago, so I don't want to harp on it too much, but I always think about that time because of it was just such a crazy time in Penn State college football history. There was so much, even I think about the locker room at the time, and how you got guys who had played for Joe Paterno and then Bill O'Brien and had stayed during the sanctions, but there was definitely a wall put up in the locker room, right? Yes. It was like everyone on the outside doesn't know what we've been through. Yep. For right or for wrong, young kids, I think that happened. And it's interesting that you said, you kind of had to be rigid in the standard of, hey, this is how it's going to be. And I always respected that about you. It seemed like from day one, you knew how you wanted to do things, and the good or the bad. Like, we lost to Temple one year, but after the Temple game, you came in here and it was the same exact thing, right? You weren't doubting anything about the process. Do you remember that time?
Yeah, I
probably
do.
Vividly, right?
Yeah. Probably more so than I would like. And I think, again, you understand it in ways that others can't, right? There's a high school coach named Matt Ortega, is the head coach at Coatesville High School. And I remember he went to Temple's spring practice and went to ours. And he came and he said, Temple looked a lot better than you guys. And I said this to him the other day, and he's like, I remember that. That was kind of like a wake-up call. But I think, you just think about how the program has evolved and how much pride that I take in that. And I hope guys like yourself take in that. But I also think at the time, maybe as a player, you didn't understand.
No doubt, yeah.
And I think now that, you're one of the experts in college football because you're able to travel the country, when you think about we had 5 offensive linemen in the entire program, there's some significant challenges. So I think when you take all those things into consideration, I'm very, very proud of what we've created here, but also totally own what we have to do moving forward.
Yeah.